What's up, America? Welcome to Goodnight, America. I'm America's sweetheart, Eric Ryan. Not that I need to tell you what it is we do on the show, because it's the biggest goddamn thing on the internet. But what we do on the show is we have a Jew and an idiot talking about the news that the mainstream media fears, because they're afraid of the truth. And also the Jews. All right, the 3 stories today from Real Clear Investigations. You're not addicted to you're not addicted to dopamine. You're just weak and have no actual personality. And from USA Today, the fat fascist kid fucker in the White House is extorting money from Ivy League schools to combat anti-Semitism, which might be good. It's hard to tell. Also, and first, from Real Clear Politics, Velveeta Hitler is withholding money from local law enforcement unless they comply with federal immigration law, which might be reasonable on the surface. It's hard to tell. Here to discuss the news with me is the co-host of the show. He's the Ashkenazi genius and all-around swell fella. Alex Fink, welcome to your own show.
It's good to be here. You have a lot of Hitler on that list.
A lot of Hitler. I know, I'm a one-trick pony these days. What are you going to do? All right, the first story we're going to talk about is, speaking of Velveeta Hitler, this is from Real Clear Politics. The title of the article is Federal Funds for Local Obedience. Immigration Clause puts Dems in a bind. This is the first paragraph. A little noticed provision in the big, beautiful bill forces blue states and cities to make a tough choice. Comply with federal immigration authorities or lose access to billions in criminal justice aid. This clause ties funding for local law enforcement to federal cooperation in tracking and arresting undocumented immigrants. There's a lot here, and it doesn't really make a lot of sense because the red rural areas that are going to comply with this law, no questions asked, don't have a lot of crime. So what you're doing is wasting a bunch of money. You're going to give them money they don't need, is my general first layer takeaway. What's yours?
Well, I think the crime is one side of this, right? But in general, let's talk about federalism for a second, because typically the right is on the side of giving local communities some decision-making capacity so they can decide what's best for them. In this particular case, Republicans are using a democratic tool against Democrats in some sense, right? The biggest example we've seen of this is actually when all states were forced to raise their drinking age, right? That was done by using federal highway funds.
Yes.
So basically, if your state did not raise the minimal age to consume alcohol to 21, you wouldn't get funds to build highways.
Which I had no idea, by the way, until this article.
Yeah.
I don't think that's ever talked about. That's fascinating. Okay,
and I didn't know it's in the article. I just know this.
Okay, well,
but yeah, so that's the example that immediately comes to my mind. So they're using the exact same mechanism here. Is this a mechanism I want to exist? Probably not. I'm not a big fan of it. Is it in general kind of reasonable to tie two things together in this way? Well, if it's been done before, then it's a valid tool, I guess. Now, the second question is, should we actually tie law enforcement funds to this particular law enforcement? Probably not. Seems kind of unrelated. It's almost like just a way to force somebody to comply. So first you dangle a carrot and then they say, wait, but it's tied to the string.
Now, you did say that it's a democratic thing, but that highway thing, according to the article anyway, was done under Reagan, I believe. So that was, this is Republican, this guy's Republican. So we're batting 1,000 with Republicans pulling this shit.
Well, I mean, there's been a lot of other things as well, right? Okay, you want a democratic example? The Medicaid expansion funds under Obama as part of the Affordable Care Act, right? That was the other thing, right? States had to sign up to Obamacare and create exchanges. Otherwise, they wouldn't get those additional funds to take care of the poor in their states, right? That's exactly the same mechanism, right? The federal government first takes funds from people who live in a state, and then they say, we'll give you some of it back if you do what we want. And this is how federalism ends, and everything gets centralized in one entity.
That's another part of this, is that, okay, so I'm giving you a bunch of money and then you'll give me the money back if I do X, is sort of conceptually bizarre to begin with. And then for it to be something that's so tied into this administration, i.e. deporting all the illegals. Where do you stand on the deportation of the illegal thing? Because I think it's kind of kooky, because from what I understand, we kind of need these people here. Like nobody wants to admit it, but I think we kind of do. And every piece of evidence that I can find suggests that I'm absolutely right.
Well, so yes and no. I think in general, it's kind of bizarre that the US has gotten to the point where the majority of immigrants that come in any given year are coming in illegally, right? That's bizarre. Why don't you have a functioning legal immigration system that actually vets who comes in and chooses, like the way Canada does it, the way Australia does it, and chooses who is the best one on some sort of criteria that the citizens of the country decided, right? It's kind of weird that even within the legal system, the majority of immigrants are coming because of family ties, which means we basically don't know if they're better than average, worse than average. It's probably kind of average, right? If it's just based on you have a relative in the US, then it's random selection, not merit-based selection. And then you have the illegal parts, which has an additional element of, and you're willing to break the law. That's negative selection. You're probably choosing people who are slightly worse than average because they're willing to skirt this law. Maybe there's a higher likelihood that they'll be willing to skirt another law. On the other hand, as you said, it seems like immigrants in general are harder working, right? They're more driven. They've been also selected for ambition, regardless of what type of immigrant it is. Family-based, illegal, legal, doesn't matter, right? Immigrants tend to come in and they want to make a good life for themselves and their kids. And so they work harder. They work professions that the local population typically looks down upon. And so, like, should we deport random immigrants? Probably not. Should we deport ones that have criminal records? Probably yes. That's what the law says we should. And so you could make the argument that what the admin is doing right now when it's dealing with sanctuary cities, etc., is, wait, but people have criminal records. Why aren't you reporting them? The law says you should deport somebody if they have committed a crime that falls in certain categories. And these cities are not. So if this is what the admin is coercing them to do, that would be good. If they're just coercing them to let ICE agents do whatever the hell they want and raid the Home Depot parking lot to throw away everybody who's looking for a job there, that's stupid.
Right. And so again, I think it's rooted mostly in in fucking just pure everyday racism, because the statistics are, what they are, but according to everything I've looked up, immigrants or illegal immigrants are 33% less likely to commit crimes than natural born citizens. They're agriculture jobs, construction jobs, food processing, elder care, hospitality. They're willing to do hard, low wage, often dangerous labor that we are not willing or able to do. They do pay, like everyone's like, oh, they don't pay taxes. They pay a shit ton of taxes, and they don't do, like, they pay into Social Security. They get no Social Security. In 2022, they paid $59.4 billion to the federal government, $37.3 billion to state and local governments. I mean, what? To your point, they're self-selected for ambition. The illegal thing, sodomy, for example, is illegal in 12 states. I'm not going to stop having a bunch of gay sex. I think that whole illegal thing is just a veneer of, they've committed a crime. Okay, sure. But if all criminals paid $60 billion into federal taxes, I go, all right, well, fucking great. What's the problem then?
Let me kind of give you the more balanced view, because I think on most of these points, it seems like people get pretty dogmatic, like with every political issue in the US, and it's all slightly murkier than that, right? On the one hand, let's start with the crime statistics, for example. That's actually not a right or left issue, because most of the crime statistics you're citing come from the Cato Institute, which is a right-wing institution, but is very pro-immigration, right? So they do a lot of the research and publish basically research that shows immigrants commit way less crime. But there's a problem there. There is a mismatch between the statistics that the FBI gathers and the statistics you get from surveys of people who experience crime, basically of the victims themselves. There's a giant mismatch there, especially among illegal immigrants, because illegal immigrants are less likely to go to the FBI, to go to their local police station, to the FBI to report a crime. But if you do a survey, they tell you that I've been mugged, right? So who most likely commits crime against illegals? Other illegals, right? Because they live in the same areas, right?
That's true of any demographic. Whites commit more white-on-white crime.
Right. But the point is, we know there's a lot of underreported crime in this particular demographic because it's afraid to report it. Right. That demographic also basically accounts for that underreported crime. If you adjust for those numbers, then you actually get the answer that legal immigrants commit way less crime than natural-born population. Illegal immigrants probably commit slightly more, not less. So I disagree with Cato on this one. But is it by a lot? Like, should crime be the main driver of immigration policy? Probably not.
If you're going to hold crime up to this higher standard of the reason why we hate a certain populace, no one commits more crimes than white men in this country. That's simply true. Now, it's a demographic problem because there are more white men in general than others. But it's so it's a weird thing to be like, crime, no crime. Well, no one does it more than me, baby. No. And
I certainly don't want to go into this, because once you start comparing demographic groups, then you get canceled, right? So let's not go into that discussion at all. I don't think it's a valid consideration for the most part, though I do think that as somebody who immigrated to this country, I had to go to the police station in my home country and procure a piece of paper that shows I have a clean record, right? Yeah. That was a part of my immigration package. Clearly, somebody who just crossed the border didn't do that same thing, right? And that's kind of an odd double standard, right? Why don't we know if this particular person that came from, and by the way, it's not just Central America, right? People are going from Eastern Europe, they're going from Asia through Central America to the US, right? I actually know several people here in Texas who got asylum, and they're from Russia, right? But they came through Mexico and applied for asylum, right? That wasn't a part of the package they submitted. And that's a really weird policy. You apply some rules to some people, not to others. Same thing with vaccinations. As part of my application for a green card, I got a whole bunch of vaccinations, or I had to prove that I already have had them before. People coming through the southern border don't have that requirement either. Yeah. So it's not that I'm saying this demographic is bad in some way, but it's odd that we have allowed that to happen. Now the question is, how do you fix it? You probably don't fix it by deporting 15 people right away. Right? Yeah, you should probably fix it by figuring, okay, who has a criminal record and is actually somebody we wouldn't admit otherwise.
Right.
Let's first encourage them to just leave of their own accord and reapply. Yeah. If we can't, then the worst among them we should probably deport. Right? For everybody else, let's give them a way to reapply while they're here. That makes more sense.
Yeah, it's like there's a lot of fear mongering. Remember the raping hordes? Like my whole thing, because my father-in-law bought into the raping hordes, and I was like, these rapists could just rape locally. You don't have to walk 600 miles to go rape somebody. It's just this constant, these illegals. All the murderers come up here to get good agriculture and hospitality jobs, only to murder Americans because it feels better. It doesn't make any sense. It's fear mongering. So
I think our dogs and our cats are just tastier.
That's a good point. They don't move much, so they're full of fat. They're like veal dogs. All right, I think we went way over the 7 minutes. Do yourself a favor, watch some commercials, buy some stuff. Come right back. Hey, welcome back out of the illegal immigration pan and right out into the anti-Semitism fire. Here we go. You ready? This from USA Today. This is an opinion piece, by the way. So this is Columbia University agrees to $200 million settlement over anti-Semitism following Trump administration probe. Here's the first paragraph. Columbia University has reached a landmark agreement paying over $200 million to resolve allegations of anti-Semitism and civil rights violations. The settlement restores federal funding, but requires sweeping reforms in governance, disciplinary procedures, and academic oversight, signaling a broader crackdown on campus speech and conduct. I always thought that college students were more open to experiences in different people, in different cultures, in different religions. But as I did a little research here, wow, Columbia and Harvard really hate Jewish students. Why? Why would that be a thing that they would be? I don't know, man. College students have changed. My whole thing was, oh, you guys are binge drinking too much, whereas these people are protesting against the Jews constantly. What happened?
Yeah, well, it's hard for me to say what happened, but it has clearly gone in the wrong direction. Now, does that mean that the government should shake them down for money? I'm not so sure. In this particular case, it's not that much money. Like, it sounds a lot, 200 million, but Columbia's annual budget is many, many billions, right? Their endowment is, I think, 7 billions or something like that. So 200 million is nothing to them.
I got the hard numbers. Let me back you up here. Their endowment is 14.8 billion. I ran the numbers. A $200 million fine is about 1% of their endowment. So I think it's mostly, it's a slap on the wrist. It's a $200 million slap on the wrist.
And I'm not even talking about the fact that a nonprofit organization essentially has retained earnings, right? And they're calling it an endowment, but they're reinvesting the money and making more interest on it, and it's all tax-free. That's bizarre by itself, right? But setting that aside, right, I think the main part of the agreement is not 200 million. It's that they caved, right? And so now a lot of colleges will cave after them. I think Brown University already followed suit for 50 million, right? That was after this article came out. And then the second part is they agreed to some supervision. Right. So basically, they agreed to a particular person that will now oversee their hiring or their policies or things like that to make them slightly less like Nazis, which seems like a good thing.
Right. That's the troubling thing. I don't know whose side I'm on, because I don't like the White House. I don't like an American university having a $14.8 billion endowment. Like, that seems a little evilish. You know, anyone can just absorb a $200 million fine and like, it's all right, it's nothing. That's a little, shouldn't you be doing public good? You're a university. Shouldn't maybe this 14.8 billion be serving the community somehow? Evidently it's not.
Well, I mean, that's one question, or the other way to put it is, should you be a nonprofit, right? If you're clearly making a profit and you're reinvesting that profit, right, then A, you should be taxed on that profit when you made it, right? And B, you actually have a separate tax on retained earnings. And if you keep retaining earnings for decades on end, that should probably apply too. So they're not paying tax twice, essentially. And it's them and every other public university that is actually a private entity and not a government entity. I'm not sure they should have nonprofit status. Now, as far as I know, Trump only threatened Harvard with basically stripping them of their nonprofit status, but we'll see.
That's what I found too. So you're Jewish. Help me understand something. Okay, so all right. So there's the Gaza issue, and then so what we do as American students, it looks like, is we get mad at Jewish students for what the Israeli government did. Right? We can just agree that the Israeli government acted, and then people were mad at Jewish students at universities. Then on the opposite side, seemingly, if you're critical of the Israeli government, you get wrapped up into anti-Semitism. So it's like, is every Jew beholden to the actions of the Israeli government in some, you know what I mean? Can you not separate because I don't feel like if I went abroad and somebody hated America, I get it, but it wouldn't be like, it's not me, man. I didn't, you know what I mean? So
but look, I think the two things that you stated are connected, right? It's not like I would automatically brand somebody an anti-Semite if they criticized Israel, right? But what happens, I think, with a lot of Jews is we observe at who is criticizing Israel and what else they have done, right? And it seems like the same people who are criticizing Israel are also harassing Jewish students at Harvard and Columbia, even though they have no connection to Israel. They were born here, right? And so if you see that this overlap exists 80% of the time, maybe you take the extra step and you just start assuming that, this guy just said that Israel is an apartheid state. They're probably an anti-Semite, because it seems like most people who say that are also harassing students randomly.
Yeah. It's disappointing because, you know, supposedly the Ivy League schools are our best, and that's where the brightest go. And college is supposed to teach you critical thinking. So why you would be like, Israeli government bad, Jewish students bad, seems like pretty fucking stupid, doesn't it?
Yeah.
I mean,
but in general, they're critical, right? They're just not thinking. But here's the thing. All of this predates Gaza, right? Gaza kind of made it implode. But I think this general view of dividing the entire world into oppressors and oppressed, and basically assuming that if somebody is stronger, then they must be the bad guy in every story, right? That view has been in American universities for at least 40 years. And I think critical thinking would actually ask the question, why are you assuming that these axes are the same? You have the good-bad axis and you have the strong-weak axis. There's no fucking correlation, right? Why are you just assuming that strong is bad and weak is good? Yes, Palestinians are weak. And yes, 83% of people in Gaza support violence against civilians. Whereas in Israel, that is definitely not the case. So the moral axis here is very different from the strength axis, but students don't understand what two orthogonal axes are.
No. Here's the other thing, is that I thought maybe that this whole shit was overblown. So I ran some numbers. As it turns out, there was 113 arrests at one of these protests. 80 students were expelled. At Harvard, there was a 500-page internal report that reported that 26% of Jewish students and 56% of Muslim students feel that they're physically unsafe. So this does seem like it's a real thing. Then you look at the history of anti-Semitism at Ivy League schools. It is pretty shocking. There's a Jew quota. I'm sure you know about the Jew quota. In 1935, Columbia had a Jewish student body around 40%. By 1940, 5 years later, it was under 20%. It wasn't because of changing demographics. It's because they talked internally. It goes, no more Jews, no more Jews. And this seems to be a thing that happened at Princeton and Dartmouth, Harvard. It's crazy.
No, we discussed this a few episodes ago, right? It seems like the reasons flipped, but the discrimination remains the same, right? So in the 40s, Harvard was discriminating against Jews because they just didn't like Jews. And it was in vogue at the time to not like Jews, I guess. And now they're discriminating against Jews and Asians because they're couching it in, we're just trying to help other groups that are underrepresented. But the reality is, if you have a fixed size student body and you're taking race into account, you are discriminating on a racial basis. It's not that complicated.
I got to tell you, man, I'm not trying to virtue signal here, but I really enjoy immigrants and I really enjoy Jews. So I don't know what the problem is. I think if I was in charge of everybody's thought process, we'd be better off. Like, listen, man, I think I see these pictures of starving children in Gaza and I'm fucking shocked and horrified. And, but that's, and I'm not, it's terrible. I have nothing against Jews. I can't, that's awful. But listen, we dropped atomic bombs. We killed so many innocent women and children. Oh my God, war is so complicated.
And by the way, on that particular one, you know that Israel dropped more bombs in Gaza than total people that were injured or killed in Gaza. So like if Israel was actually looking to kill a lot of people, it's doing a terrible job, right?
Yeah,
it's pretty clear that they're trying to be very, very selective in what they're doing. So yeah, most of what these students are claiming is just stupid.
Listen, we're trying to get on Jewish live television here, so all this is very fine. This is mainstream for this channel. Anyway, listen, take a little break, get yourself a nice Jewish beverage, and come on back. We have one more segment.
This is kosher, by the way.
Oh, good, thank God. Hey, welcome back. How was your Jewish beverage? All right, story number 3. This comes from our friends at Real Clear Investigations. This is called Addiction Fiction. Dopamine is not why your kids love TikTok. Here's the first paragraph. Health experts and the popular press tell us that fun activities can give us dopamine hits and that overindulging can result in a dopamine blowout. Indulging too much in naughty activities, somehow it's always naughty activities, may create a dopamine deficit. Nowadays, it seems we can be addicted to anything, not just alcohol and drugs, but pornography, random internet browsing, video games, and smartphones. My initial takeaway here was that everybody is so desperate to be diagnosed with something. Everybody has ADHD, everybody has anxiety, everybody has depression, everyone's on the spectrum, everybody's addicted to everything. Like at some point, isn't that just what being human is? Maybe. Couldn't that be a thing? Do we have to say, oh, I'm addicted to? No, you're not. No, you're not, because this article proves that the brain activity is wildly different from being addicted to substances that are cool and fun, like alcohol and cocaine, and staring at your computer screen, looking at porn or candy or whatever it is. So anyway, what was your take on this?
Well, I would kind of try to split the difference. The reason I sent you this article is that I thought it's nice to hear the other side, because we always hear the addiction fearmongers, right? Yeah. It's nice to hear the guys who say these aren't addictions, they're just things you like, right? Okay. Yes. I think it's not quite one or the other. The truth is in the middle, right? Mm-hmm. I have seen people who are addicted to gambling, and guess what? They are fucking addicted. Right.
Yeah, that's a good addiction. That's a good addiction.
Exactly. But the point is, like, if you lose your house, you borrow all of your parents' money and you still lose it and you keep doing it, right? Yeah. Chances are you're not just enjoying it. Chances are you're
point, because there is no substance involved in that. And this exactly. whole thing was kind of like, you need to do something, put something in you.
Right. And then if gambling is this thing, then you ask, well, how is it unique? It doesn't even seem like a natural human need. I would expect there would be stronger addictions when it comes to sex or food, because those are natural human needs that we were wired for. And surprise, surprise, there is such a thing as clinical sex addiction, right? Yeah. People who are just chronically looking for it all over the place all the time and can't help it, right? And so it makes sense that now you have chronic porn addiction. It's not very far from sex addiction. It's just all the sex is on your screen, right? So again, I disagree with the article that there's this clear demarcation between substances and behaviors. I think behaviors could be addictive. Yeah. I think doom scrolling the news is probably an addictive behavior. I don't think that is benign. I don't think that people enjoy it at all. Like, talk to a person that's doom scrolling for 2 hours every day and see if they enjoy it. Yeah, there's no way. They hate it and they do it anyway, and they don't know why they do it. On the other hand, not everything should be medicalized. I agree with that.
Not everything should. And the idea that it's just dopamine, right? It's just dopamine. But they go on to explain that dopamine has a lot of different functions in the human brain. It's involved in movement, anticipation, pleasure. So it's dumb to just say, because they mention all these books like Dopamine Detox and all this other shit. But then again, like, this is where science loses the average person. This is a quote. It says, you can get dopamine either from rich sources like meditating, exercising, or doing something that is meaningful to you, or you can get it from self-sabotaging like junk food, scrolling social media mindlessly, or anything that provides instant gratification. They really think humans are like, most of us don't get a lot. The dopamine hit between meditating or hiking and having a bunch of drinks with your friends, at least for me, is wildly goddamn different. And the fact that science never gives credence to this like middle to normal ground is so annoying. Doing exercise is not going to get you off the same way going to Five Guys is. It's just not. Just fucking admit that. But they can never do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and the other thing is it's not just dopamine. You have a whole bunch of different neurotransmitters, right? And a lot of them are involved in these behaviors. So if you're actually looking for some sort of bifurcation and say, you know, this good, this bad, I would actually draw the line elsewhere. And I would say it's activities that also result in some serotonin or oxytocin or one of these things that you get from bonding with other people, right? They are probably better sources, even though they result in dopamine as well, right? Than something that just gives you anticipation of reward, and I'm still alone and in my room, right? So that's kind of the things that you need to bifurcate. Actually, I forgot what was the name of the author. There was a book that focused on this kind of what he defined as dopamine/serotonin dichotomy, right? And talked about how we're supposed to pursue happiness, like even our Declaration of Independence said so, but we're pursuing pleasure. Momentary pleasure, not happiness. And those are not the same thing. So things that give you pleasure, contentment in the long term are probably better than things that make you happy right now and miserable in an hour because you ruined something.
Yeah, absolutely. I just think humans are complicated. Another thing he says, which I think is pretty crazy, it's like, he goes, think of it as the feeling of a child awaiting Christmas, the giddy excitement. That's often different from Christmas Day itself, which feels less exciting, even if it's a present. I totally disagree. This sounds like someone who never got a Sega Genesis, someone who never got Mortal Kombat on Christmas morning. Because I'm telling you, the anticipation of a Genesis is way less good than opening a Genesis. So there's going to be like room for people's experiences, you know? And I just
it sounds like his experiences, it's either socks or towels.
Yeah, he was let down. He thought he was getting the Genesis. He did not get the Genesis. Therefore, he wrote a paper talking about it. You know how anticipation's better? Isn't that better, guys? No, oftentimes it's not.
But remember, you should add the Jewish angle. Presents are not always something that you get for Christmas. Sometimes they're in an envelope and there's cash involved. So he was just disappointed by the number of zeros.
Probably. Either way, he was disappointed, and so he didn't get the dopamine he should have, either from the video game system or the cash. But here's the other thing too: is I just think that this kind of stuff is so disappointing because life is hard and complicated and sad. And even if you love something and you do it a lot, you probably do more boring shit way more often. You know, so like they take these things that give us pleasure and they go, you know how this is giving you pleasure? Well, it's horrible for you and it's ruining you and it's ruining your personality. You suck. It's like, when do we, okay, so all I get to do is meditate and exercise and then work and pay taxes? Is that all? And eat healthy and eat salads? Like, where is the room for consideration that we're hedonistic creatures and it's okay to like some of this shit? You know, it's
okay to like some of this shit, but you probably should pick the things that you like and are the acceptable vices for you. Right, things that you can do a little of and not just fall off the rails, right? So if you can smoke once a week and that's sustainable for you, go ahead, do it, right? But if the moment you take a cigarette, now you're at 3 packs a day, guess what? Never touch a cigarette. It's not complicated. You know yourself, right? Assuming that you're more than 4 years old, you should probably be able to make those decisions and figure out what are the things you can do that are maybe sort of bad, but you can do them and like you don't lose it. Keep doing them. They're probably good.
I know, but the dorks would never say that because what the dorks do, like if you go to ChatGPT and you're like, what's a healthy amount of alcohol? They'll come back and say, no alcohol is the right amount of alcohol. All right, well, okay, 1 drink a week. You know what I mean? Like a single serving of French fries is like half a French fry. This is unrealistic. And this is why these people lose everything. And that's why like the dopamine detox and dopamine reset really speak to people because it's incendiary and it makes us think that what we're doing is bad and wrong and we kind of like that. It's just so everything in moderation, baby. Just don't be a dork. You know?
Including moderation.
Including moderation. All excess and all renunciation brings upon its own something. I don't know. Go read Oscar Wilde. Anyway.
I think the Eastern European saying is too much of anything is bad for health.
Yeah, okay, that's fine too. just stop with the science. It's okay to be like, oh, dopamine's wrong. Okay, real quick too, before we go off, there was the section of the article that says, is everything addictive? And then they give the 10 questions where you have to ask yourself about the thing. And then if you answer yes, then you're an addict. Do you think about X, your passion or hobby, when not doing X? Do you feel bad when you're unable to do X? Do you find yourself doing X to relieve negative moods or stress? Isn't that everything fun? Think about watching football, getting laid, having a couple drinks with friends. I think about these things when I'm sad and I want to relieve stress, or when I'm not doing them because I'm doing something that sucks. These are terrible questions.
No, but by the way, they think exercise is good, but guess what? If you have a stressful day at work, like you're probably thinking about going to the gym afterwards and taking that energy out, right? Especially if the gym involves hitting something, right? Or at least choking somebody out. Like I used to think about jiu-jitsu and boxing all the time while I was working, because like if the day was bad, that's what I keep looking forward to. What comes after it? Like, does that mean I was addicted to boxing?
Evidently, that's wrong. Yes, that's wrong. So you're a stupid addict and you need to go seek help. Here's the other thing too. I accidentally on YouTube last night, it fed me something on intervention. So I watched the first 5 minutes of intervention, and this chick was an alcoholic. Then she wakes up and she drinks a gallon of wine, then she has 6 Budweisers, and then she drinks a 5th of vodka. That's an alcoholic. But they make you think. They make you think if you have a couple drinks a night or a glass of wine, you're like, well, you're teetering on the edge. No, not compared to real alcoholics. Anyway, listen, don't listen to science.
Wait, gallon, and then she was doing stuff out. That's not an alcoholic. That's fucking impressive. How?
I know, and she was walking around in a bikini too. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck. I guess you don't eat. I don't understand how this works. Yeah.
What's she drinking into? It's clearly not her body.
That's a great question. I'm not sure. But anyway, my point is that's too much. What we're talking about is normal, but they throw us in. They throw the baby out with the bathwater. They throw the addiction baby out with the addiction bathwater, and then we can't have any fun. Anyway, this was fun. Tune in next week. We'll talk about more immigrants and Jews and addicts. It's going to be great. Good night, America.